Hi, thank you for being with us. So we listened to your speech, and you spoke a lot about the Palestinian-Israeli peace process, which you said you don't believe is dead yet. But a lot of people on the street say that no, there's no Palestinian peace process with the Israelis anymore, especially because of Trump's statement on Jerusalem. Can you touch a little bit more about that?
Well, if the peace process is dead, what is the option? Is it violence, and is it another round of hostility that will ultimately not serve the purpose of anyone? I firmly believe that we can get the process on track, but what we need to do today is not obsessively focus on the negotiations aspect of it. But what we need to focus on is on creating the conditions under which negotiations are meaningful. Because if you don't focus on these conditions, it would not make much sense for the parties to sit down. And I think everybody realizes the objective limitations that both the Israeli government and the Palestinian leadership have in these circumstances. That's why what is important from our perspective today is to really look at changing policies, transformative policies that would actually change the situation on the ground. And there's plenty of there to be done by Israel and by the Palestinians, and obviously with the support of the region, which is critical in the current environment.
And when you talk about the support of the region, Egypt has been playing a very significant central role in the reconciliation between Hamas and Fatah. Do you see Egypt also playing a significant role in the peace process between Israel and the Palestinians? Maybe not, maybe more than what it used to, especially since they have the trust of the Palestinians, which the U.S. may have lost.
I think Egypt is critical. It is certainly critical to the situation in Gaza and to the prospects of returning the Palestinian government back into Gaza and controlling Gaza and in all aspects of civil and military aspects as well. But it also plays an important role in the region as an anchor to any future peace arrangement or any peace deal. And as I said earlier in my presentation, I think for us to be able to reap the benefits that would emerge from Arab-Israeli cooperation in the future, we need to focus on resolving the Palestinian question. And resolving it means returning back to the paradigm of two states. And that is critical. The Egyptians have been fully supportive of that. They continue to work very effectively. Not just Egypt, by the way, also Jordan, Saudi Arabia, a number of other countries. And their role today to create the incentives for both sides to understand that without resolving this question, you can't move to the broader question of Arab-Israeli peace is very, very important. I hope that soon enough the Egyptians will return to their role in facilitating the PA's return to Gaza, and that they will take up a more active role and approach to bringing the two sides together. They have the trust of not just the Palestinians, they also have the trust of the Israelis.
Right, and the trust between Israel and Egypt, the cooperation as well. In terms of Gaza, I mean, that's a humanitarian situation which can explode at any second. And we have seen the explosions out of Gaza in the past that are deadly. Do you see a way to fix that humanitarian situation? Should Israel do more? Should the PA do more?
Well, in fact, every escalation in Gaza is deadlier than the previous one. So the last one was pretty devastating, and I'm worried that the next one, if it were to come, it would be really, really devastating for the people of Gaza and for the region, with consequences here in Israel and in Egypt, obviously. So there's plenty that needs to be done, and that's why in the next couple of days we're meeting in Brussels with the donors and with Israelis and Palestinians to look at a number of issues, and one of them is the situation in Gaza. And I hope at that meeting we will see Israeli and Palestinian government initiatives that will help alleviate the situation on the ground related to water, to electricity. What certainly needs to happen is the restrictions that have been imposed on Gaza need to be removed, or at least beginning with more eased. We need to see an economy develop. But for all of those things to be facilitated, we also need to see progress in the Palestinian government returning to Gaza. And that return means not just picking up the salary tap for the public servants in Gaza. It means taking control of security and making sure that the issue of militant activity on the ground is addressed, that tunnels and rockets are addressed. All of these issues need to be put on the table. Hopefully we will show some progress in the next couple of days with the donors on this. I'm particularly worried about the situation in Gaza. I really believe we're on the brink of another explosion, which is not in the interest of anyone, and we must do everything we can to prevent it.
And just one final question. You touched on the tunnels and the rockets, and I had the chance to visit one of these tunnels, and you can see the effort and the money that they put in. So what can the UN do to really make sure that these tunnels are not being built and that money is going towards infrastructure for the Gazan people?
Well, what we can do, we can't start digging for tunnels, but what we can do is we can very actively and in cooperation with Israel and with the Palestinian Authority control that what goes under UN assistance programs in Gaza ends up where it's necessary. And we have had a quiet and secret, in a way, success over the last few years with the Gaza reconstruction mechanism, which has allowed for a number of construction materials to enter Gaza through Israel under very strict UN controls that make sure that they go actually to people's houses. This mechanism has been quite effective. What I think we need to look at further is some of the initiatives that UNRWA took over the last year when it sealed tunnels that it found under its schools. But the rest of it, the real prevention of terrorist attacks in Israel coming from Gaza is in the hands of the Israeli security at the fence. And I think it's important for the people in Gaza to understand that, investing money in this type of aggressive infrastructure in Gaza is not helping the Palestinian cause. It's in fact also undermining the humanitarian situation in Gaza. And this is where the political messaging, the clarity of the position of the international community, of key partners, the Arabs, everyone in the region, is very, very necessary.
And when you spoke about UNRWA, there's a lot of talks in the United States about cutting the funds from UNRWA, and that can also make an explosive situation in Gaza even worse. And can you touch on that a bit?
Well, it can, and not just in Gaza, because UNRWA is critical to the stability of both Lebanon and Jordan and the West Bank and Gaza. I know that our colleagues are very concerned with the situation right now, and are working very actively to find money to replace the funding that has been reduced by the United States, to optimize how they use their money on the ground so that they don't have to cut services. I've been to refugee camps. The last one I visited was in Balata in Nablus. And I can tell you that when you speak to people who have practically no options for employment, whose children are growing up in a school system that is seeing funding cuts, obviously the incentives for these children to become violent and to engage in violent activity becomes stronger if we have weaker presence on the ground. And this is Nablus. The situation in Lebanon, in the camps in Lebanon, is even far more complicated than that, because there's very active presence there of weapons, and that undermining that sense of stability there will also be critical. So UNRWA is effectively an important element of the stability of the situation today, both here in Israel and Palestine and in the region as a whole.
Great, thank you so much.